Welcome. I'm here today to talk to you about a very ancient prophecy about the return of paganism. I've talked about this before, but it was a different prophecy, because there's a prophecy from the Native Americans, which that video I will link in the description below, about Crazy Horse and his vision for the world before he died. Today's video is from the other side of the planet, from Indonesian, where the mystics of that country have had a similar vision. Now, I've always loved prophecy. I don't blindly trust it though, because it's very hard to blindly trust anything these days. But I see prophecy as sort of an indicator, as an indication. Like there are people who study the economy, and what they do is they have certain indicators. And do the indicators tell them something? Well, they don't tell them what's going to happen, but they tell them what is most likely to happen. And what they do when you study the economy is you search different indicators, and when certain indicators all point to the same direction, you get a thing called confluence. They confluence in indicators, and then they can successfully predict that there's probably going to be a recession in 2026, which probably is going to be the case, but don't take your financial advice from a guy with a stick in the woods. So not financial advice. That's what prophecy is for me. It's an indication. And it becomes especially interesting when you have multiple prophecies from different parts of the planet all pointing in the same direction. That means we have something substantial on our hands. This isn't just some personal gnosis. This is a verified gnosis from different people from different parts of the world. Now, you also might have the question, how do I know this prophecy in Indonesia, since nobody seems to know this prophecy? Well, I spend a lot of time in Indonesia. You know those kids who do yoga in Bali? They act like they're all enlightened and spiritual. Yeah, that was me 10 to 15 years ago. No, seriously, that's me. Take the time to laugh if you want. I was looking for something back then. I didn't realize it was inside of myself and inside the soil that I was standing on right now. I do now, but I didn't know it then. So that led me to Bali. Spent over a year there, spent a half year, then a couple of months. In total, I think I spent more than 2 years on Indonesian soil. I learned a lot there. Bali is a strange island, meaning that it's 90% Hindu, but the surrounding country, Indonesia, is more than 90% Muslim. So the story of Bali is kind of like Asterix and Obelix. I don't know if you know that, but it's this tiny place that kept on to ancestral beliefs, while it's being surrounded by an army of people who want to convert it, and who want to kill it, and who want to change it. Not all people, of course, in Indonesia, but there are a lot. Because when I was there, I saw an in-stream of Muslims in especially the north of Bali, but all over Bali. I saw them buying up land, putting up mosques, blasting the call to prayer at 4 o'clock in the morning. Then everybody left because they didn't want to live next to the mosque. Then the real estate prices fell. Then they could buy up the whole neighborhood for cheap. They really used every trick in the book to push the traditional Hindus out of their ancestral land. And it made me angry, because I felt you're just a small minority. But they knew that if they fought back, they would get destroyed by the Muslim army. But they were very relaxed about it. And I didn't get that at the time. The reason I'm talking to you about this prophecy that was told to me 10 to 15 years ago is because only now I'm beginning to see the signs that this prophecy might actually be true. Well, like I said, they were under attack by Muslims, but the locals weren't phased. They weren't phased at all. They were just like, yeah, it's okay. And they have a tendency to be a bit mysterious in Indonesia, especially when it comes to foreigners. They don't tell you everything. They just go like, yeah, it's good luck. Yeah, it's okay, no problem. Just keep everything vague. Because I was there a long time, I finally got somebody to talk to me about why everybody was just so incredibly relaxed while they were in the process of being conquered. And they says they will just go away. Says, yeah, it's prophecy, everybody knows. And all the other guys from Bali were like, yeah, we know. They just go away, it's no problem. The prophecy was that the new religions will go away and the old religions will come back. And they told me stories in Java and in Jogja that there were guys with money spending millions of dollars rebuilding, just rebuilding the old temples. Because they know the time is coming where people are coming back to the temples. Which I found really fascinating at the time. I'm a big fan of prophecy, but spending millions of dollars because of a prophecy and just hoping it will turn out well seems like a bit of a gamble to me. Okay, so the prophecy is that people go back to the old religion. Well, you first have to understand what is the old religion. They still have an old religion and they don't teach you that in school. Indonesia went through many phases. It went to Hinduism, it went to Buddhism, it went through Christianity, it has Muslim now. But there's one thing that has survived and adapted to all of it. They have a very old way of being. A thing they call ilmu kebatinan. Ilmu kebatinan is an old art. If you translate it in Dutch, it's like toegepaste kunst en kennis van het leven, which translates pretty shitty to English, meaning the art of living applied. But it has to do with meditating. It has to do with chanting, like we chant the runes, they chant their mantras. It has to do with forming alliances with spirits and demons, just like us. And you think that this religion must be gone right now, right? Because everybody's Muslim. In fact, when the Dutch occupied Indonesia, guess who was at the absolute heart of the resistance against the Dutch? Ilmu kebatinan. So, it's still there. But how come it's still there? Well, first you have to understand, on paper it's 90% Muslim, but you have to know that Indonesia isn't really 90% Muslim. When the Muslims formed the majority, they implemented what they called a kafir tax. Sometimes they call it the dowry, meaning that if you are not Muslim, you have to pay a special tax. 10% on top of all the other tax you have to pay, and that 10% goes directly to the mosque. Meaning that you can choose to either become a Muslim and strengthen Islam, or you can hold on to your old beliefs, and then you're going to give us 10%, which means you're also going to strengthen Islam. Whatever you're going to choose, Islam will win. Now, when they did that, the other half of the country converted because they didn't want to pay the tax, but they were smart about it. They knew the prophecy that these things will come, but these things are not in line with natural law, so they will move in a couple of generations. So we will just have to hold on. So part of the people of Ilmu Kebatinan wanted to reform from the inside. So yeah, we'll be Muslim, but there's still a lot of Indonesians who go to the mosque on Friday but still pray to their old gods inside of their own house. I've noticed this because when it was Friday prayer at the mosque, everybody was done and everybody was leaving, and I saw girls coming out of the mosque, taking off their headscarf, getting on top of the sepeda motor of their motorcycle of their boyfriend, lighting a cigarette and just driving off. And I was like, you're all holy in the mosque and then you just put your clothes off, just light up a cigarette and go fuck it and drive off? I couldn't understand, but the locals explained, no, they're not real Muslims. They're KTP Muslims. KTP is their mode of identification, it's their passport. So they're only a Muslim on their passport. They're not really a Muslim. So here's the interesting part. So you already have half the country who doesn't really agree with Islam, who's just playing along because they know the time of the sand religion is coming to an end. And the reason I make this video, because the second domino is falling as we speak. If you Google apostasy in Islam in Indonesian, you find out that every day there are thousands of people no longer practicing Islam in Indonesia. There are entire villages just leaving the mosque and leaving it all behind them. So if you realize that half of the country isn't even Muslim, and of the half of the people who are Muslim, they're actually leaving the religion, meaning that the power that Islam held over this country is fading, and it's fading fast. And all that shall remain when the mosques are empty is the original instructions of Imu Kebatinan. So you see, it comes from the Americas, it comes from Indonesia, it comes from Europe, it comes from everywhere. Everywhere we hear the voices from long ago telling us old songs of the earth, old teachings of the earth. They are returning all over the earth. And you and I are part of this resurgence. You and I are part of this prophecy of Crazy Horse. You and I have the same Indo-European root as Imu Kebatinan. These are amazing times to be alive. I feel very privileged to be part of this. And I feel very privileged to record this video, to speak this glorious news. So, ga met goden.